This is the next installment of our Green mini-series with Pathfinder. So this is the second time that we've done this. It's also the second episode in this year's series, isn't it? We're speaking to Beth Allen, and you will recognise her face from television, especially if you've been in like New Zealand or Australia.
And if you Google her, you're definitely
100%.
Yeah. When she came onto the podcast, I was like, oh, yes, I recognise her. And also really fun interviewing an actor because they're so animated.
Yeah, she's cool.
Yeah.
I actually said to her at one point in this interview, oh my God, I really love your sense of humour. I think we'd be friends. And she was like, what? You cut out for a second. And I was like,
and I was like, Sophie said we're going to be friends.
So awkward.
So bad. Anyway, yeah, she has built an incredible property portfolio off the back of her earnings she got when she was a child actress. Then she has now invested money on behalf of her kids. We really wanted to open up the conversation around how she views ethical investing and how she ties that into the decisions that she makes when it comes to investing.
It was a super interesting conversation. We kind of touch on all elements, don't we? Like we talk about Elon Musk, we talk about Tesla, we talk about her property portfolio, her relationship with her husband and how they merged their finances. And it was a really great chat. So we're going to cut to that now. Beth Allen, very excited to have you on the podcast.
Welcome.
Thanks, ladies.
We just had a bit of a debacle trying to set up the camera and the technicals and the bright lights and children and unmade beds. And I just thought, this is reality, isn't it? You know?
It is reality. Yeah, I know. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you can podcast from wherever. You're working for yourself. Amazing. And it's like, yeah, every cupboard is so fun. Yes, honestly.
Yeah, it's not as glamour and glitzy and easy to just like quickly set a podcast up as I think a lot of people may think. But
damn it. That was going to be my next career move.
well, we can talk about that after the podcast.
Everyone's doing it.
I know how many people are like, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. I'm such a cliche.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's like, that's such a
to the point where if people ask me what I do for work, I often am quite like, oh, I've got a podcast.
Do you just lie?
Well, it sounds like I've just started a podcast about makeup tutorials and, you know, there's 3 people that listen and it's just, you just feel like a bit of a dork.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I start a lot of my sentences with, I listen to this thing on a podcast and I hear myself and think, that's awful.
Yeah.
It's also like, oh, I've read this book lately and people are like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main reason we wanted to get you on was to speak about obviously investing and money and your life and your career, and there's so many things that we would love to chat to you about. But we kind of wanted to start in the acting space. Ooh. Because this is something we've been wondering for a while, especially with all of the writers' strikes and all the stuff that was happening in Hollywood and the amount of shows and films that have been held up by people just being like, this is not good enough, pay me more. When it comes to acting, what kind of pay discrepancy did you experience? I mean, I'm imagining when you were younger and acting as a kid, that was something that was like much more prevalent. But when you were on Shortland Street, and did you ever talk to your co-hosts about?
It was actually, the discrepancy was worse when I got older. I guess because actually there were fewer of us when we were acting as kids. So I was well paid and probably, I think, like one of the highest paid in the cast when I was working as a child. So I started in 2008 on Shortland Street and I was on less money than I'd been on in 1998 when I was 14.
Wow.
I'd been working as an actor for 13 years. When I started on Shortland Street, I was being paid a third less than a man who started with no credits.
How did you find that out?
Well, this is the thing, is when you work in TV, they like tell you not to talk about your fees amongst actors. So you don't.
That's what I was going to say. Like, how did you find out? Because most people don't talk about it and therefore don't know. So I'm kind of fascinated that you knew the details.
I think I actually can't remember, but it definitely came out. And I even, when I was negotiating pay rises, I even brought this up. I was like, I think I should be paid just as much as him for these reasons. And they were like, yeah.
Yes and no. Sorry.
Wait, so then they didn't give you a pay rise?
No. They gave me pay rises, but they wouldn't match the guy.
Oh, I feel like I need to punch something. Yeah. Like, I don't know why it makes me so mad.
But also no justification, nothing being like, oh, no, sorry, you're less experienced, or, you know, it's just like.
Oh, they were nice. They were like, that's a really good point. I can see that you're making a really good point there.
But we're going to do nothing about it. Yeah. It's the penalty for having a vagina. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you the other thing that wasn't so much about the money. Like whenever I see women on TV, like in sports shows where they talk about sport and the women have got like the most amazing hair and all the makeup done. And so they have been there since 4:30 in the morning getting their makeup and hair done. And the men have sort of just got a bit of foundation on. And those men will be being paid more than the women. But also those men will be better slept and have more of a life because they haven't had to spend all that time being made to look appropriate for television. So I had this like really blonde hair when I was on Shortland Street, but my hair is like naturally like this. I would have an hour and a quarter in the makeup chair every morning to have my curly brown hair like straightened out and blow dried. So, and all of the men had a 15-minute makeup call. So while I was in the chair, they could do 5 men at the same time that I was being done. And so I worked out that every year I would spend 4 weeks more a year at work for less money.
Why did you stay? I feel like I'd be like, this is ridiculous. But then I guess that's your career and that's your...
Also, Shortland Street was like the creme de la creme at the time as well. I mean, like in terms of acting.
I'm picking at the bits, the crappy bits, but actually I loved it and I loved that job. And also New Zealand's a small place. There are not that many TV jobs to do. And I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to get married. And I really like being on set and I really love acting, but I don't love waiting around for work. So I wanted to be working and Shortland Street was that for me. I got, 6 solid years of work and it helped me get myself set up, more set up financially. So that was part of it for me. So not all bad, but there's some elements that are really super unfair in our industry.
I never thought of that hair and makeup. I once got asked to be on breakfast TV and I was like, oh my God, exciting. I was like early morning and I was like sitting in the chair and I was talking to the ladies and I was like, oh, what time do the presenters get here? And they said that they were like, the women presenters get in here an hour and a half earlier than the male. I was like, next time I'm going to ask them. I was like, oh, so do they get paid more because they have to be here longer hours? Like, it's just...
Just because we've decided that women have to have all of the stuff done to us.
I would love to just rewind slightly back to your acting as a kid because this was something that you, quite differently to other child actors and child stars, like, when you read books or you watch films or documentaries about, I mean, I'm not trying to compare to Britney Spears, but the famous people who happen to...
Don't. I mean, I love her.
grow up acting or singing or whatever. When they earned money, it was often then exploited by the parents, as in, oh, we need a new bathroom renovation, so we're going to send little Beth off to go and be in a Cabbage Patch campaign. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But actually you had the complete opposite. Your parents were really clever with your money.
I did. And also I had the luxury of parents that didn't need the money. I mean, I work with kids whose parents use the money, and not in any kind of nefarious way, but just in like...
afford school fees or...
Oh, yeah, all sorts of things. And so it was quite a rare situation where it felt like kids were being exploited. It was more that like there was money coming into the family and, it got used by the family. Whereas for my situation, my parents didn't need to. I mean, they let me have it for a while. And then when they realized that I was 16 and burning through it, like nobody's business, they were like, you can't have that anymore. And I was outraged and had to go and get a boring job in a ice cream parlour in Lynn Mall in Auckland on $5.50 an hour in order to have my pocket money. So anyway, they took all the money off me and thank God they did, because then I had a house deposit when I was like 19.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. At 19 as well. Wow.
And I can still remember the meeting with the mortgage broker. So the house was $321,000 and I had a deposit of $101,000. The mortgage broker was just like, there was none of the, I don't know if you guys have gone for mortgages recently, but they are so intense about every single thing. And we are now like, I've got 3 kids, I'm not working, like they look at every single line item with us now. But back then they were like, a third deposit. Here you go.
They were like, who are you? You're 19 with $100,000.
Well, so $100,000 that long ago would have been, that's like $500,000 now. Like nobody can save that amount by that age.
Yeah.
It's just, that's so amazing.
I was extremely fortunate.
And how has that stemmed into the way that because you've got kids, how do you talk to them about money now? Because especially if they're not child actors and they're not earning as much as you were at that age, it's kind of a different story.
Yeah, I think we've been quite deliberate that we've decided that their money, their pocket money, which they get $1 for every age they are. So the 3-year-old gets $3, the 5-year-old gets $5. So that money is not contingent on anything. Like that's just their money. So they don't have to do jobs for it or anything. And that's just the way we've decided to do it.
God, I'd love that. 32, just give me $32, Take me out to brunch.
Yeah.
But also I can't be bothered arguing about it. Like if you do that sort of thing with kids, it's like you have to do this to get your pocket money. You end up talking about it all the time and I can't be bothered. As in you're always like, you have to do the job to get your money.
Yeah, do the dishwasher.
It's always a negotiation and they're like, no. And you're like, come on.
It's always a negotiation and an argument and I can't be bothered. So they get that money. We give them half of it. So they have half of it and it goes into their bank account, which for a while we let them spend all of it on toys. And then we just realized that we were just like surrounded by crap plastic toys. We now take half of it and I put it into Sharesies, basically. So they have a little investing account on Sharesies. I do it on my phone and they have an automatic buy every month of, it's like $5. It's not a lot, but they have, I've chosen funds for them. And then $3 they get to keep and it just stays in their bank account and then they can spend that how they want to spend it. And they don't understand the Sharesies thing at all. They just like...
Do they understand where that other half of their money is going? And have you tried to explain, like, oh, if we're taking half your money because it's going to be more in the future, like, do they get that concept or are you trying to explain it?
I have explained it to them.
Yeah.
I feel like when I said something like, we're going to give it to some companies and they're going to make money for you for it, they were just like, what's a company? So we sort of get a little bit stuck in some quite big concepts. But yeah.
It's like when you open the can of worms about sex, you're like, oh gosh, no, not going to open this rabbit hole. Yeah.
It's so funny to think that little humans don't understand concepts that are just so obvious now, like that your brains are not developed enough to totally understand what you're...
Oh, yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah, like what's an economy?
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. Even explaining the sky, you kind of just take everything as like, oh yeah, gravity, real normal. You drop something and it falls to the ground. Yeah. That's not normal when you're 3.
Yeah. Well, it's like when we started the podcast and you're like, what is a stock? Well, it's a stock. You're kind of
so
like,
true.
I'm like, it's just a stock.
So I was a 3-year-old.
Yeah, you were the 3-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, talk to me like I'm a 3-year-old. Yeah.
Have you tried investing in companies that they might be interested in, like Disney or... if they start watching Cinderella, you're like, you actually own part of that movie or things like that.
Yeah, I think, we sort of talked about maybe like investing in toy companies, but like part of me feels like I don't want to contribute to more plastic.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've actually gone for more, I think I'm using the Pathfinder fund, so that like the kind of more ethical funds, like the water fund and stuff. So I think I was looking at doing the companies and then I thought, actually, I think I'd rather just have them start with the ethical stuff. And then if they want to get interested in, because they're not really product kids yet, like they don't really know brands, they don't really know. So until they sort of start showing interest, I'm not steering them any of that direction yet.
Yeah. And in terms of your relationship, so you were 19 and you bought a house. When did you meet your now husband and how did you sort your finances? Like you were coming to the table with quite a lot there. Did you sign a prenup? Did you have a conversation about the idea of merging finances? Like how did that all play out for you?
We moved, so I met Charlie when I was 24. He was 25. We moved finances pretty much immediately. Like we kind of got a joint account and then we got allowance accounts very, very quickly. So we were allowed to spend a little bit of money of our own every week. And we actually still do that, which almost is pointless because all of our money is merged, but for some reason we still have these allowance accounts. And then we were just quite serious, quite straight away about buying our house. We wanted to buy a house together. So we immediately started saving and being quite disciplined about a budget. And then when I sold my first house and Charlie and I bought our house together, I definitely brought a lot more money into it than he did. And we did talk about getting it's called a Section 22 or something. It's like you opt out of the Matrimonial Property Act in New Zealand. So you basically just say when that doesn't apply to us and we've agreed that it doesn't apply to us. And I think we maybe didn't end up signing it because we were married. And now
she's like, damn, I really need to dust off that document.
Yeah. Well, now to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Like we've been married for so long and now the landscape's completely different now. And I haven't, I've been with the kids for 7 or 8 years and he's the working person and now it would just be completely different. That's not to say that you shouldn't. Like I have friends who've got Section 22 agreements because I think that's what they're called because they've brought disparate amounts of money into it. And I know people who didn't sign them and it has gone badly. So I would definitely, if I was a person bringing more money into a relationship, I would definitely insist on that. And maybe we just got really busy. I'm not actually sure why we didn't sign.
Life just got in the way, maybe?
When you say you moved quickly.
When if you can remember, how did those initial conversations start? Like being 24, 25, having a conversation about money and moving really quickly by combining your accounts.
Also, what's really quickly? I'd like some specifics.
Yeah.
Oh, like we were living together within a couple of months.
Holy
I think
shit.
We were quite serious about each other pretty fast.
Oh, it's so
How
funny.
fast have you moved?
Yeah, well, yes. How fast have you moved, Vic? No, it's quite funny because, when you're our age, you date, you still generally have a conversation about, are you boyfriend and girlfriend,
Yeah.
And I was talking to my housemate the other day and I said something, oh, yeah, Vic's boyfriend. And she was like, what? Vic's got a boyfriend? And I was like, I don't know. I think so. And
I don't even think Vic knows.
I don't think Vic knows. But just it's an ongoing joke basically that Vic's like, you've been on 3 dates and actually we've booked our wedding venue. We are very serious and not that serious.
No, I just I'm efficient. I'm an efficient dater.
Oh,
I'd rather
not speaking
figure
my
out if it's
language.
going to work or not and be in or out.
Sorry, yeah. We digress. Yes.
So the early conversations about that stuff, I don't really remember. I remember it being pretty seamless. Like he told his best friend after 3 weeks that he was going to marry me. Like he was very serious. I guess we were both really committed. I think maybe we were both we're serious about this. We want to buy a house. Let's move in together. Well, if we're going to do this, we need to get serious about saving money. And it never really has been an issue in that regard. Like we have disagreements about money in different ways, but that let's combine our finances. We'll do things 50-50. That was never an argument or an issue.
And how does your husband, or how does the decision making go in terms of your financial decisions? Does he make the decisions? Do you make the decisions? Do you influence each other when you're making those financial decisions? Like how does that split work?
It's sort of changed over the years. Like I think I used to be a lot more, the word that keeps coming to my mind is controlling, but I think I used to be a lot more concerned with making sure that we were kind of watching every dollar and saving money wherever we can. And
do you think that was because you brought more to the situation that you were like, this is kind of my money, so can we not be so frivolous? Like, was there an element of that?
No, it was more kind of what I grew up with. My parents were pretty careful with money. They were also my parents were comfortable, but they weren't at all wealthy, and they worked jobs, they weren't business owners. They worked, my dad worked for a company for a long time and my mum was self-employed, but not in any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, lucrative way. So they were just kind of careful with their money. And I guess I grew up around that. And then I had seen, I guess maybe I was influenced by having made a lot of money when I was a kid and saving it. So I was like, well, this is how you do it. You save money to get where you want to go. And I think now that things have gone on, we have invested money in property, and Charlie has a business, and the business is, is growing in value. And so I think I've started to think about money slightly differently, in that I used to be really concerned with, well, how am I going to retire? I want to retire. I want to make sure my retirement is sorted. And now I'm a bit more like, I'm 40 next year. I've still got 25 years of work ahead of me. We've got a pretty good base. We can build on that in the next 20 years. I think his business will, go well. And, I think I just think about it slightly differently. I don't think about it in quite so held a way. I'm a little bit more open-minded about it. And so in terms of how we make money decisions, I think we talk about most of it. We don't have long kind of involved discussions, but he'll say, I want to do this. And I'll say, I think we need to do this. Or that made him sound like he wants to do things and I think we need to do things. That's not true.
He listens to this podcast. He's like, Beth.
The controlling behavior.
No, I'm sort of like, well, I think we should do this to the house and I need a new laptop or whatever, and he'll have his things and we just kind of work it out, I think. But I think my stuff has influenced him and his stuff has influenced me. So I've kind of relaxed a bit, because he is a lot more believes that money will always be there and it'll come, and he works hard, and he's had the experience of knowing that he can do that and generate that. And I've had the experience now of just he sorts it out and he works really hard, and we've never had to go without, or, he's a really good provider. So I've sort of learned to trust that a bit more. Is that a very unfeminist thing to say?
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear that. Yeah, the idea of he's a great provider. It is funny you bring that up, because as soon as you said that, I was like...
We both jumped to he's the only one providing. You can want someone to be a great provider, but also provide yourself. Do you know what I mean? I want my partner to be a great provider, but not the only provider. Do you know what I mean? I want to be a team.
But then it's hard though, because for example, if you did want to take time to go and then look after kids, it's very privileged to be able to work for yourself or freelance and also look after. I mean, that's the dream. I'd love to be able to do that, but also it's not easy. And
No. I guess I'm meaning you're more a team and you're both being the providers.
Oh, sorry. So you mean in Beth's situation that she is providing too, because she's looking after.
But Beth obviously wants him to be a great provider as well, not the only provider.
I see what you're trying to say.
But we both jumped to the conclusion that she was meaning he was the provider.
Yes, you're so right.
Whereas it's like, no, you can be a team and both want to be providing.
But
and
also she
therefore,
already is providing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Sorry, we just fully had like a full-on discussion without you.
No, that's okay.
I know. She's like, I'm here, guys. I'm here.
Yeah, I probably should give you some context. I wanted to stay at home with my kids. I worked since I was 11. I got to my early 30s. I really wanted to have children. And so I was like, I'm going to stay at home with them. And that meant not going back to work, essentially. But also I didn't really have a work to go back to. Like, I'd stopped being an actor. I had kids. And acting for me has taken a really back seat in the last few years. But also when I said before about Shortland Street being a really good way to make money, it's kind of almost the only job that makes me money in New Zealand. It's the only reliable income as an actor here. So once I'd done that, it was like, well, I could, and I did voiceovers and I did some commercials and whatever. But in terms of that, like, long-term gig, those didn't really end up happening again for me. So I was at home with kids, and then it ends up being that he ends up being the person who's earning the income. So he kind of does need to provide that income for us. And that's what he's very good at doing. And I'm back in university and I'm studying, and I fully intend to step back into the workforce doing something quite different. And I can't wait to do that. And I'm really looking forward to working, but I'm unusual in that I will have stepped out of the workforce for pretty much 10 years by the time I step back into it. And that's quite unusual. For most women work, they pick up work again quite quickly, or they do things, they work. But I have stayed at home with kids, and it's also a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely.
How lucky for your kids to have had 10 years of you dedicating your love and time and attention to them. That's pretty special.
Yeah. I really hope they say that.
Yeah. Just replay this podcast to them when they're going through the teenage puberty years. Just replay this podcast.
You used to be so cute, and I used to talk on podcasts about
cute. Yeah.
Beth, I know you're not much of an investor, as in that sounded fucking rude. Sorry, I mean... you don't invest in shares heaps. Yeah, like you've got your KiwiSaver. But we heard through, I was going to say the grapevine, that you've been reading the Elon Musk book lately.
Yes, I did.
We want to chat to you about that, because one of the stocks that we often have debated, I think within our community, people we know, between Vic and I.
Yeah, between me and you.
Is the Tesla stock.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What have you learned from the book about Elon as a guy? Like, is he someone you'd want to have over for dinner? You'd invest in their company? Like, we'd just love to hear how that has been to read.
What I found really interesting is that he let that journalist, Walter Isaacson, follow him around for 2 years, and he gave him total access to everyone around him, and he didn't ask for any kind of approvals or copy anything. So
I love that.
I don't know if I could
really
do that.
interesting.
I'm surprised he did that.
Oh, I wouldn't want to do that. Oh my God, if someone saw what I was like for 2 years. Oh. I think he's amazing in terms of his vision and his dedication and his drive. Like the way, how much he works is insane, and his ability to get people behind him to work in the same way. However, I think probably the world, I'm not saying anything new when I say that the Twitter thing is weird, and I'm not even sure that he knows. I think in the book it paints it that he ended up kind of being stuck with Twitter. Like, he made a stupid offer, and then because he'd made the stupid offer, they basically were going to take him to court. Well, they sued him, didn't they, to make him finish the deal. Hasn't Twitter halved in value since he bought it? Is that right?
Well done, yes.
Yeah, so I feel like he's a genius, but everyone makes bad decisions, and he can make bad decisions. And he's also spread pretty thin at the moment. So he's running SpaceX. He's running what's the brain one? The chips that they put in people's brains.
What the hell is that?
Oh, yes, the new one. I've forgotten the name, but yes. Thumbs up.
He's got the Boring Company. He's got Tesla. He's got Twitter. So he's just got so much on. I would be nervous if I was an investor that Tesla is going to get forgotten about, or going to get not the same amount of attention that it needs.
And that's what a lot of Tesla shareholders said when he bought Twitter. The Tesla share price fell, because it was like, well, you can't really have a CEO that's running two massive businesses and have 100% of their attention, which is so true. But I don't know, coming back to your point, I feel like, yes, Twitter might have not been the best investment. It's halved in value. But Elon, he's not your typical CEO. He is creating SpaceX so people can go live on another planet.
Can we just talk about that for one moment before you continue this train of thought? Because I don't even know what SpaceX is.
So America sent everyone to the moon, right? And then in the 90s, they decommissioned it. So his view is basically that that human beings don't always go forward, that they can go backwards. And that in the regards to the space travel, America went backwards. They stopped being able to send people to the moon and to space. And so he decided that he was going to do it, and he wants to colonize Mars so that we've got a plan B as a planet, which like I have a serious issue with, because if you have that much money, why don't you save this planet? But anyway, and then he made it happen. Like he sent rockets. His company, privately owned company, is now sending up satellites so that we have an internet up there, but also sending people to space.
I feel like he just gets shit done. It's like, you know what, we're going to have driverless cars, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, mate, like, yeah, whatever. And then he just gets it done. We're going to go live on Mars, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever. And then he just gets it done.
But that though, he's been saying that the driverless cars are coming next year since about 2016.
Yeah. His timelines are a bit off, but yeah.
But also the thing about Twitter is he bought Twitter wanting it to become a financial platform, so to be able to send and make payments. But before he bought Twitter, he didn't check whether Apple were going to pass on all of the credit card accounts that they keep stored as part of the iPhones. And Apple were like, no, we're not giving you that. So he bought Twitter thinking, I'm going to make this into a financial platform, without checking whether Apple were ever going to give the data from their users.
Yeah. The amount of large companies out there that are doing great things. I don't think there's any CEO that gets as much attention as Elon Musk. And maybe it's because he does come out and he says things like, I'm going to buy Twitter, and then doesn't actually follow through. And then the SEC, which is like the regulator in the US, is like, well, no, you have to, because you've made an offer. You know, like he does things like, oh, I'm going to buy some stock, and then the share price goes up. Or, you know, he manipulates the market, and it's not allowed. So I think he is a very special character, but he just gets so much attention. And it kind of, you have to come back to the fact of like, okay, well, do you want to invest in a company that is run by this man? And I think the kind of two arguments are, do you view him as a very ambitious, driven person that's going to drive growth for this business? Or do you view his character, how he treats people, you know, that he is spread too thin, and therefore you don't want to invest in Tesla? So it's kind of figuring out, because I read the other book, the previous one, that wasn't commissioned by him. It was pretty damning in terms of how he treated staff. And I mean, we've seen what's come out in the news about, like, there's been strikes and uproars in factories because of the working conditions in Tesla. And so I think some people are like, yes, you can be driven by growth and wanting to change the world, but at what cost? And so, I mean, I remember speaking to you, Soph, and you were like, yeah, Tesla, yeah, reducing carbon emissions for the world and all of that. And it's like, yeah, but they treat their staff like shit. This is the whole debate, is if I was the CEO of, a solar panel company, and then I was actually, majority of my personal investments were invested in oil and gas, or I actually had a business on the side that was digging oil in the ground, digging up for oil in the ground. You know, it's kind of, where do you draw the line? And it's a hard one, because we do think of Elon Musk and Tesla and everything he does as one big bucket, but...
Well, it kind of is, because he's in charge of it all.
Exactly, yeah.
He's not letting other people run those companies.
Oh, I find it so fascinating. It kind of makes me want to read the book. I also am like kind of shocked by the idea that he was fine with someone following him around and documenting him. He must be narcissistic. Surely he knows some of the shit he does is questionable. But maybe he doesn't.
No, he does.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, I think he does. And I think he probably, I don't know. I my sense is that he knows pretty well who he is, and he's not really apologetic about it. And I suppose he would have trusted the writer. The same writer did the biography of Steve Jobs.
Which I'd be like, hell yeah, if he came to me and was like, hey, I want to do a biography on you, I'd be like, oh gosh, yes.
Do you know what I also, I don't love the idea that so many autobiographies now are not written by the person. Like, as in, if you just commission a ghostwriter and they don't have any access to you and they're just kind of following your notes or stories that you've said over a couple of coffees, I'm like, I don't want to spend money on a book and time reading that. But the fact that someone has invested 2 years of their life into getting to know this human and then depicting it in a book, quite fascinating.
Totally. Did you know that Elon isn't actually the founder of Tesla?
No.
Yeah, no, he's just the CEO that's been there forever.
What?
I know,
Who founded
wild,
it?
It was founded by two other guys like years ago.
Really?
And then he came in and was like, oh, this technology is actually really good and I can see potential in this business.
Well, see, that kind of makes me think in terms of the whole Twitter debacle.
That he can turn it around.
Yeah, because it's like if his, I don't know, expertise is spotting a good business.
But the point in the book is that Twitter's actually sort of more about marketing and feelings than it is about rockets and science. And what Elon is really good at is streamlining supply chains and manufacturing chains. So he's got this whole way of working that's like, if you don't need that part, if that part is delaying the production line, what's that part for? Who says we need that part? If you don't need to get rid of it. You know, he's really good at that. But you go to Twitter and it's all about, well, who gets to say what, and what about free speech, and you don't get to be a troll, and people are, it's different. So whether or not his skill set will actually work at Twitter remains to be seen.
I don't imagine he's the most emotionally intelligent human.
No.
So the fact that he's trying to take over a free speech platform that's about opening up conversations, you know, I'm like, I would love to see you running a content company or, you know, like.
Well, it's like rockets and cars, to put it simple, pretty similar in terms of putting stuff together and making something move. And then you've got a media company / platform. Yeah, very different.
Well, he was also PayPal though, right? So he knows about finance and complicated software systems and stuff. But when he took over Twitter, it was much more about, and it was very left leaning, which he has an issue with. But it's a very different place than Tesla.
What do you mean he's got an issue with left leaning? Can you elaborate on that?
So part of the reason that he bought Twitter was he kind of, after COVID and all of the agitation that was happening online about, particularly in America, about restriction of free speech, but also restriction of movement because of the lockdowns, there was a lot of agitation about the government imposing controls on freedoms. And he felt that Twitter was silencing conservative voices, right-wing voices. And when he went into Twitter, there was a whole investigation done by the New York Times where they found that Twitter was kind of actively working with the FBI and that they were suppressing right-wing voices. But also like 98% of the donations that came out of Twitter were to Democrats. So the argument that the conservatives have is that Twitter has been silencing conservative and right-wing voices, which Elon doesn't agree with.
Oh, so it's all about freedom of speech.
But then there's an instance in the book where there's a Twitter account called Musk Jet. So there's like a Twitter account that follows his jet around, and it's all publicly held information because that's the flight paths and stuff. But Grimes had a stalker who figured out where she was going to be based on where the jet was, and he was like, shut down that jet account. And they're like, but you can't shut down that account and say that everyone else is like, and say that we have to bring back Trump. But he's like, but it's endangering my kid.
Oh, yeah, it's a tough one. Just coming back on the whole Elon Tesla discussion, I guess how has his leadership, or how does his leadership, I guess, kind of impact your decision to invest or not invest in the company? Because at the end of the day, he is the driving force of Tesla.
I mean, I think I would be happy to put in what I'd be happy to lose towards that. I'm not sure I would. I'm not sure I would trust him with my life savings.
Yeah, he seems a bit.
I actually agree.
Bit erratic or a bit volatile in terms of.
He's volatile.
But I think that's why he's so brilliant, because like the share's gone up, down, like it's so extreme, and so is he as a person, that he probably has the ability to make huge highs, but then also, holy shit, what's the low going to look like? So I agree.
Yeah.
I think you want to put enough in that you're happy to lose.
Totally. And how do you balance, I guess, the innovation that he brings, but also like the controversies? Do you think there's a tipping point for you where you'd be like, you know what, no, I'm done with this?
I'm not really interested in being in public spaces that aren't moderated. Like I haven't been on Twitter for a long time because I didn't find it all that useful or pleasant, actually. And so I'm not sure I agree with like suppressing right-wing voices because you don't agree with them. But I do agree that you can't just troll hate and viciousness online. So I think if I don't actually know because I'm not on Twitter, but I feel like if you were allowing that to happen, then that shows a kind of character that I'm not really interested in investing money in.
So you're more of a case of investing in him and his character than the businesses, if that makes sense.
Well, your question was like, what's the cutoff point? And I think for me, it would be if his view is that trolling and being vicious online and hate speech is okay to allow, then that would be my cutoff point. That I wouldn't really care about how innovative you are, amazing you are. You're allowing harm online.
What I love about what you just said is there's a real clear understanding of you as a person, your own values, where you draw the line. And I think that's actually a really important part of ethical investing, is actually just being able to see a situation or a set of values and be like, yes, I can get on board with this, or no, I can't. And I think what we've created with Pathfinder, this quiz, is to find out based on your values inadvertently by answering questions like, if you had a dinner, how would you pick a restaurant, which sounds kind of trivial, but all of that kind of stuff, like your personality traits, feed into the way that you spend money as a consumer, and then also should feed into the way that you spend money as an investor. But a lot of us, it's not connected for us. For people who are listening that are like, I don't know where my cutoff point is, or how I can choose whether or not I think a company is ethical and I want to invest in it. The quiz that we've created with Pathfinder is a really great resource, and you can find it in the link in our show notes. Just as an aside, sorry to like interrupt the combo, but I think that's a really good point that you make.
It takes everyday kind of situations and morphs it into, I guess, an outcome where it's like, okay, this is the type of investor you are, which personally I was like, oh, good. But it's making that connection really clear, which is super helpful.
And I also think just giving you a chance to reflect on, what kind of investor am I? You know, I think a lot of the time, I just don't have time to sit with my values. The fact that like it's automatic for you, I think that's brilliant. And maybe there's some instances for you business-wise and CEO-wise where you're like, I don't know, and maybe I need to reflect on that internally. But yeah, I think just giving people a chance to think about what are your morals and values, and are you showing up in the world in all elements in terms of the way you parent, you're a friend, a landlord, an investor, all of the things, do they align with who you are as a person? You're not expected to know this stuff, but hopefully this conversation and the quiz that we've done will help direct people to start to think about it more and invest in the companies that they do want to see grow and they do want to see become bigger and better.
Mic drop moment, Soph. No, but it's a good point. And I think with everything also going on in the world right now, the fact that people can actually take action and be like, you know what, no, I don't want to support this company because of XYZ. Or yes, I do want to support this company because of XYZ, because it aligns with my values and my beliefs and what I'm passionate about. And I think is just another really powerful way, rather than just speaking, but actually doing. I think it's another really powerful way.
Well, it's also quite a good way to not feel so hopeless about it all, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You can actually feel like you're contributing or actually moving the needle.
Well, there's even things like KiwiSaver companies are investing offshore, right? And so if you're not aware of where that money's going, then they can be investing or supporting the war without even you realizing it, you know? And you just need to do your research and understand where your money's going.
And not be naive and think that everyone is investing in the same way as you. Because if you're giving your money to someone else, they'll have very different values and ethics to yourself. So you need to make sure and double check that they are aligned with you.
Oh, look, I feel like, Beth, we've talked to you for ages. We've actually, people won't realise this, but we've done this in 2 parts.
And we all came back dressed in the same clothes, so no one can know.
The magic of podcast.
Magic.
We're so clever.
Yeah.
It was really cool to hear about your upbringing and like how you ended up buying property and now being a mum and your relationship dynamics and everything. And yeah, now that you're interested in investing and also investing ethically, it was really cool to talk to you. And I hope and I think a lot of people listening will have learned not only a lot from you as a person, but also started to think about things a little bit differently. So
hopefully.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I know when you've got kids, it's hard to find.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything that you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking to your friends about your salaries.
And if you liked what you heard, we would love it if you could hit the subscribe button, please.
Yes,
or
please.
Better yet, leave a review. It'll only take
nice
5
one.
seconds and it would really make our week, our year, our month.
Okay, lots of love. See you soon.
Bye.